It started off as a horror game, but now it's something quite different. This is how my indie horror game transformed into a movement shooter that lets you use the most overpowered and skill-based movement mechanics of all time.
Ionlenta.
I've never made a game before, so I knew that I had to keep my expectations really low. I set the goal for the game to be just a spooky walking sim, with no enemies and mostly just trying to showcase my ideas and weird sound design, because I love messing around with audio. Of course, everyone always recommends Unity for noobs, and that's what I started with. Unity was alright, but it was still quite bare bones, and getting even the simplest of interactions to happen was really time-consuming, and eventually I lost motivation. After a few months, I decided to try Unreal. I heard that it's a great one for artists. However, I am aware of the reputation of Unreal Engine 5 games being unoptimized. But the good news is that I'm one of those weirdos who is obsessed about frame rate and visual clarity. I set myself ground rules that the game must look good without any anti-aliasing, and that it never dips below 144 FPS. And hey, it worked. The current version of the game runs on a potato, and 144 FPS is what I consider baseline for a mid-range system. I disabled all forms of temporal anti-aliasing and ray tracing effects, so there's no ghosting or blur. Because I disabled all the performance-heavy features, I still get the modern bells and whistles like the awesome reflections that are completely free. I especially love the localized fog, which has the appearance of volumetric fog, but performance-wise costs nothing. To me, optimization is a really interesting topic, so let me know if you want me to go in deeper detail and show off some of the tricks that I used to squeeze out as much frames as possible. Anyway, let's start with my very first build. Here I was still figuring stuff out. It was my first day of learning to use the engine, and I was pretty surprised how quickly I got something done. First off, I went crazy with the depth of field and motion blur. I ended up turning those effects permanently off in later versions. But I wanted to see how much I can mess around with the values and if I can create some weird, dreamlike effects with them. The post-processing filters really help to mask the lack of visual detail. But eventually, I learned that it's not really necessary. It's bare bones, but the idea is there. First thing I did was make the game use custom color gradient maps as color schemes. Funnily enough, that means the game is actually monochrome, black and white, with each color simply being assigned to a certain brightness on the screen. This door is one of the first things I properly coded from scratch, with random door opening bloops and randomized malfunctioning. I'm so fond of it that it remains in the game to this day. I had a lot of fun making weird noises for the computers and doors. There's also a soundscape that plays random sounds in random locations, which really elevates the ambience. This entire room is still in the current version, and I don't think I'd ever remove it. The atmosphere is immediately perfect. It's all about sound and ambience. Since my friends were going to be the ones playtesting, I want to troll them a bit and made this message pop up, implying there's a monster that the player would need to hide from. In reality, I had no idea how to make something like that, but somehow, just the idea of something is scarier than the thing itself. This hint would become a recurring gag in the current version. I would put it in places where it makes no sense, or if the player is in a situation where it's impossible not to make noise. It's a nice memento of the early days, and absolutely hilarious when playtesters take it seriously. I also made this fake debug message pop up, implying that an entity called Zinc Fossil has been spawned. I came up with the name on the fly, and that ended up becoming the first enemy of the game.
Additionally, the soundscape changes to include some more spooky noises. Verusbog.
Anyway, you walk around in the dark, press a couple of buttons, and find the fossil creature Gehirn, and enjoy some cool beats. Very simple, but it was super fun to make. Only took a couple of days, and most importantly, I learned a lot. I had a couple of friends playtest it and give me their feedback. The blur had to go. It was too dark, easy to get lost, but otherwise, the atmosphere was spot on.
And now, time for the next build. Well, look at that. We have a menu. I even made a little screen with some lore, but as you can see, it's kinda hard to read. But let's begin. And immediately, we can see that the FOV is much bigger and the colors have changed. It doesn't hurt to look at anymore. Or maybe it does, in a different way. I also made these cool computer terminals, so let's see what's in there. Oh. Wow. I made all the music, by the way. I'm the coolest. Another extremely important feature is the light switch. It works, and I think I removed it. There's also automated doors and lights, which work most of the time. Another feature that didn't carry on was the collectibles. These were here mostly to just make sure playtesters saw everything. The elevator is one of the greatest features of all time. It goes into a random direction for a random duration, and then opens the doors back to where you came from. Wow. The new version features brand new textures. I used Photoshop to combine and add new details into existing stuff. I wanted every texture to be uniquely Bionlenja. As you explore the halls, you'll come across inaccessible rooms and suspicious dead ends. And now, when you press the big button, this happens. Anyone who has played Amnesia before will immediately recognize the signs of an impending monster encounter. You'll close the door and hide while the classic monster searching music plays. Of course, there's nothing out there, but I'm still being an asshole. You can hear doors opening in the distance. The door to your room also is programmed to open itself. The gaslighting. After the danger music fades away, the playtester will arrive at the fossil chamber, where the highly contagious fossil is being held. I made the fossil's voice with didgeridoos. But in later versions, I voice acted the scene myself.
Spirit, your flesh shall sing. Take my blade. Evolution.
Your character screams in pain as the fossil evolves your DNA towards something. Awesome name aside, all it does is make certain walls disappear. Look at this awesome invisible tutorial, where the player gets familiar with the blade. Surely they will not get instantly lost and not find a single breakable wall. Every single playtester got lost, and I had to pretty much tell them which walls to hit. Going with the Dark Souls illusory wall approach is probably not the right move for mandatory content. After some exploration and banging data logs, you find the final collectible. For some reason, the reward for collecting them all is extended jump height. However, this gave me an idea. Fast forward 1 year, and the game looks like this.
If you want to be part of this game's evolution, join my Discord. Link is in the description. The game is available on Steam and there's a free demo. My Discord also has playtests very often for experimental mechanics and future updates. Next time, we'll take a look at the version
Where blade jumping is introduced, and the update where like and subscribe is introduced.